Let's face the wall, hands right at shoulder level, a little bit wider than the shoulders. Let's step the feet back. Let's have our feet together or as close together as they can be. And then as far back as you can stand with your heels on the floor. And we want the heels to be able to ground with our long neutral line, not having to pop back through the tail at all. So we're zipped up through the low belly, seat is engaged, kneecaps are pulled up. Let's start with a few releves. So we're just sliding up and down that nice long line, getting the breath going. Rising as high as you can comfortably to stretch the fronts of the ankles. Be sure you're pressing strongly through the big toe side of the ball of the foot. And now let's turn that into running. So we have one knee bending and really pulling forward toward the wall as it bends. Other side, heels still reaching back to that light tap down. Let's do 5 more switches. And again, still drawing up through all the muscles, holding your line. And then we'll come up to releve and see exactly how high your heels can comfortably be. You can always just set them down if that's better for your feet. Now we're going to start bending the elbows a little bit wide to hinge in toward the wall and slowly press back out. Let's inhale as we go in and let's exhale to press out. Now for more challenge, we're going to not straighten the arms all the way. So go as far in as you can. Only press halfway back to straight arms and pause. Inhale forward. Exhale, press and pause. Option to point one toe just off the floor into the wall. Press halfway back in that pause. Let's switch feet into the wall. Halfway back, pause and switch. Inhale. Exhale, strong center as we press away. In. Press, pause, and switch. Let's do 1 more each side. Last one. Let's go to that halfway press. Let's have both feet on the floor, feet together, zipping the inner thighs together, all the muscles lifting up. Imagine you're trying to slide your hands together. You want to get your thumbs to touch and just pull them inward as hard as you can. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, press back, drop the heels, maybe pull back into an L stretch. Take a couple deep breaths. Maybe here too, we could pedal the legs and push the hips side to side a little bit. And then let's round through the spine, walk forward to roll up out of there. And then let's come on down to the mat. We're going to lie on our backs, feet on the wall. Position yourself so that your thigh bones are more or less vertical, knees are over the hips, and then bring your heels just a little bit higher than your knees so the shins angle upward a little bit. And we're going to go 1 vertebra at a time into a shoulder bridge, so be sure to start with zipping up, flattening down through the lower back. Tailbone starts to curl out of the mat, and then we can go 1 vertebra at a time. Only come up until you feel the weight right across the shoulder blades. We don't want to go super high onto the tops of the shoulders. So we're across the shoulder blades, nice and easy. Let's get an inhale. Exhale, take your time rolling through the spine to come back down. So let's keep doing that with the breath, always inhaling at the bottom and at the top. So we have our exhale to engage and roll through. Now what's nice, one thing that's nice about doing this at the wall is that we can come up into the bridge and get some nice activation for the backs of the thighs and the glutes. But we can stay also really engaged and kind of hollowed out through the core. When our feet are on the floor, it can be really tempting to pop up too high, get on the tops of the shoulders, and kind of do an arch or a back bend, more of a yoga style of bridge. But we want to stay really connected and engaged in the center with our Pilates bridging. So being here at the wall with the feet a little bit elevated helps us do that. Feel how you have that good connection from your low rib to the bones of your pelvis. We have that all the way up to the top of the bridge. We can work through it on the way back down. Let's roll up 1 more time, and we're going to stay up there. So again, we're really curling the tailbone, kind of tucking the tailbone up into that. Now let's hover here Let's squeeze the glutes extra and really tuck the tailbone under. Then just release that like an inch. Exhale, squeeze, tuck. Inhale, tiny release. Squeeze, tuck. Yeah, trying to point your tailbone just directly up at the ceiling. But again, without coming any higher up on the shoulders, we're still hanging out across the shoulder blades. All right, next time you tuck, let's hold. Optional. Dig one heel really deeply into the wall so the other heel can slide up to a straight lat. Slide it back down. Take a moment to really push through that heel, re-engage that hip so we're supported as we slide the other one up. Slide it down, press in, work that tuck. First heel goes up. Slide it down, press in and tuck. Slide up and down. Press, tuck, one more each side. Reach, return, squeeze, curl. Last one, reach, return, press, curl, tuck the tail, squeeze the glutes as tight as you can. Inhale, exhale, rolling one vertebra at a time back down to the mat. And give your knees a nice wide hug and relax. Now you want to lie along the wall about the width of the ball away, because we're going to reach it up and connect the ankle sideways into the ball, into the wall. And it'll help to use your other foot to negotiate that a little bit. Now for balance, we want the foot to be more or less right over the hip socket. If you can do that with a fairly extended knee, go ahead and do that. If you need to drop the knee into a bend, totally fine. If you can straighten the knee all the way, let's still just keep a little micro bend in the knee to not lock out and to ask all of our stabilizers to work a little bit harder. So we're there. Let's start with your other foot just flat on the floor and start by pressing the leg sideways into the ball. And notice if we really do that, the pelvis is going to start to tip sideways if we're not controlling for that. And then gradually ease up on that side pressure so that you can fall back to being centered on your sacrum. So just do that a couple times so you feel what it's like to push in a way that really rolls your pelvis off center. And then how do you find your way back to the center of the sacrum? And then once you've found that, and that's really clear, then that becomes the challenge. How do we connect sideways into the ball, but also keep the pelvis completely centered here? Arms can be long by the sides. If it's helpful, you could also bend your arms and press a little bit more through the elbow. So for starters, we're going to float the other leg up. And let's start with spinning the free leg into turnout, pressing into the ball, and stabilizing the pelvis in center and seeing how far we can open out to the side, coming back in and into parallel. So just play with that a few times. What has to work really hard to keep your spine and your pelvis centered as we're taking that leg off center, and feel how activating into the ball can help with that. So once we know what's available there, now let's go forward with the leg. And again, really press into the ball, stabilize there as we drop away. Come up and let's see if this leg can come a little closer than the stabilizing leg. If not, that's totally fine. Again, we're just seeing what range of motion is available with our neutral pelvis, with our activation into the ball. So now that we know what's available in all directions, when we come to whatever your top position is, we'll rotate, we'll open around, we'll find that open side position on our way to reaching out and low. Let's inhale to come up and in. Exhale, scoop it around. And of course, we're trying to keep the leg on the ball as perfectly still as possible. As you notice little wiggles, those are little moments of losing that activation and stabilization. Let's go ahead and reverse that. So how consistent can we stay into the ball, into the wall as we take this big scoop around? And 2 more. Of course, if you notice you're having to use this outside arm a whole lot, that's natural. And see how much you can bring things back into the center so it doesn't end up being an arm exercise. As with all side body exercises, you'll notice right away we all have a big difference between the two sides. There'll be one side that's just a lot easier to stabilize on. So as you set up for your second side, just allow for this to be a very different experience at every point. So again, does the leg need to be a little bit bent so we can have the foot over the hip? Can we extend it and just keep a little micro bend? And then positioning the ball so we feel like we can just press directly sideways. Now let's start with the other foot flat on the floor and find that amount of press that tips us way over onto the opposite hip. And then ease up so we can drop back. And then as you go again, instead of just relaxing your way back, what has to activate if this leg is still pushing into the ball to draw ourselves back to the center of the sacrum while that top leg is still active? So once we found that, stabilize and brace there, then the other leg floats up. First, we're finding our turnout, active into the ball as we open out and in and parallel. Press, rotate, open, in, rolling back to parallel a couple more times. Again, just range finding. And don't expect this to match your first side. Could be more or less mobile, more or less stable. All right, once we found that, drive into the ball as we drop away. Exhale. Inhale, float up. Check in with the shoulders. They're falling back. Collarbones open. Shoulder blades imprinting. Now let's see if we can bring it in any closer to the chest than the other leg. Wherever that can go. From there, we can start to rotate and draw that letter D around, out low, and scoop it up. Again, we're just watching the leg that's on the ball, looking for all the little wobbles. And where do we need to focus and engage and stabilize to try to take out some of those wobbles. Go one more time this way. And reverse back. And for me, this is definitely my trickier side, so I'm having a really hard time getting the leg on the ball to stay still. Just breathing and doing my best. All right, and release out of there.